Guys, today we have a special session from Kruti Coffee for all of you who are enthusiastic about coffee roasting, more so in the specialty space. So there are a few nuances which get lost because usually roasting is not given the desired emphasis when it comes to learning. And having done it from SCA, from Hong Kong, I understand that it can have limitation for some of the people. And for me, it was a fantastic 5 years journey. As I was working, I was learning roasting from a fantastic trainer, Raymond, from the Coffee Pro in Hong Kong, and he was so accommodative over the weekends. So what I'm going to do today is run you through really how we create magic while roasting by following the specialty standards. Roasting happens in 3 stages: the drying phase, then the yellowing, followed by caramelization where the sugars get formed, followed by like the first crack, and then your development time. Now caramelization is a very important stage in the entire roasting process, but that's when you define or establish how much should be the level of sweetness. So if you keep it too long, which might be okay with some of the coffees where you need it to be more stronger, but if you are looking for some sweetness, then you have to be optimally staying at the caramelization stage for the right duration of time and the right temperature. The moment you reach a point where the beans again increase their temperature by absorbing more heat because there's no more moisture to burn, we call it as a turning point. Later on, you would be reaching a point where the green beans become yellow in color, which we call as the dry end stage or a yellowing stage. Then it gradually becomes more and more darker, getting into the cinnamon color, and the light coffee color, then a medium coffee color, and the darker one. It happens till the point you reach the first crack, and after first crack you need to measure your development time properly by controlling the ROR, and finally you discharge the roasted beans into the cooling chamber. You cool it for a few minutes and then it's ready to be rested. Very important thing which we ignore in roasting is not resting the coffee enough, because if you don't rest it for the duration that is required, you may not get the right profile when you are brewing it. So in naturals, the entire cherry is dried so that the entire character of cherry is going into the green beans, and in washed it is pulped out and then dried, also known as parchment. So the character is very different, the ability to endure heat is also very different. I would not be roasting a naturals and washed the same way, and I also not do the naturals of every part of the world the same way. And you get that feel as you keep roasting and as you keep referring to other established roasters. And in naturals you would like to get the fruitiness, the acidity a little bit more than probably a washed coffee, where I would go for a more sweeter or a chocolatey note. It's very important to understand how would we roast single origin vis-a-vis a blend. For example, in Kruti Coffee we have a Devmali washed, which is the washed Kindriguda green beans that we roast to the medium profile to get the single origin Devmali special. However, if I'm using the same washed from Kindriguda for one of our blends, let's assume Kalinga Gold, I have to also factor how is the other coffee behaving. At the end of the day, both have to combine in the right profile so that during the same extraction, so it's primarily an espresso profile that we do for our Kalinga Gold, at that 30th second I cannot have the extraction coming from both the coffees very different. The concept of ROR is extremely critical, the rate of rise. Now if I am roasting a coffee where I like the acidity more, I would like to keep the ROR a little higher. So typically the end point when a roaster is looking at is the first crack. Now if you wish to reach that stage little faster, which is required in a coffee which I am getting from say Kenya or Ethiopia, then obviously I'll have to keep the ROR a little higher. Otherwise you will be burning that coffee potentially sometimes, or going darker in a coffee where you don't need to be darker. Similarly, while defining my development time, which is the first crack to the discharge, I need to control my ROR, or otherwise I would not get it right when it comes to the development time. Well, in roasting, first crack is a very important moment of truth, which typically happens around 190 degrees centigrade, but it's not a golden rule and you should not be always looking at 190 degrees. Because that's when, the internal pressure is so high that the beans, they crack. And typically the amount of heat that is being applied from outside should ideally be reduced when the first crack is happening. Otherwise, there's too much of heat pressure on the beans and you might end up losing the characters. The roasting machine should at least have some foundational features, like it should have a good shaft collector, a siphon if possible to take away all the shafts, but it also should have a control on the rotation of the drum, because depending on the quantity of green bean that you're putting, you need to control your rotation speed. You should have a good burner with good control so that you can control the heat properly. At the same time, the roasting machine should have a good airflow control, and it's a combination of the airflow, the heat, the drum speed, and of course your artistic skill in roasting that ultimately comes out in the final brew. But in this whole process, the most critical element is your roasting machine. So we at Kruti Coffee are in a very conscious way using a very foundational Indian machine for roasting, and the reason for that is we want all the people whom we are teaching roasting in-house to understand the entire roasting foundationally rather than the machine, because roasting is an art. It needs a lot of sensory skills. You need to have good visual skills, olfactory skills, tasting skills, and hearing skills as well, because of the first crack and other things that you might miss. Now, we're extremely thankful to Artisan for the free source roasting software, and Artisan has been extremely helpful for us to track it, and the reason for that is primarily to develop a very critical skill which doesn't exist that much in India, which is the roasting skill. If your machine is able to do everything, then you don't learn it. Of course, a good machine is always going to be a good machine, but at the end of the day, roasting is an art. The best you can get out of a machine which is testing you the most, which doesn't have all the features that you're looking for, it's your artistic skill that brings out the best coffee you can. We always use an actron meter to check the outside actron, the inside actron, and the delta, so that we are consistent on all the parameters and we don't miss it. And of course, the first thing which is important even before starting the roasting process is to ensure that the moisture content is not out of scale. Otherwise, it will completely mess up your entire roasting process. So for all of you watching this roasting 101 video, I'm quite hopeful that it has really answered all your questions. Otherwise, you can comment, you can write to us, and we really thank you for spending your time to understand roasting better. We need to be all, it's a roasting community that we are trying to empower with this video. And do share other feedbacks as to what else we would like us to cover in these 101 series that we have, and looking forward to hearing from you and deliver more, hopefully, that satisfies your needs and to the level that you are expecting. Thank you from the entire Kruti Coffee team.